Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to tell a genuinely fascinating story. We're looking at the evolution of the teacher-educator profession. This isn't just a basic overview of how we learn to read or write, it's the incredible journey of one of the most vital, yet strangely invisible professions in our entire society. Because really, how exactly did the art of teaching those who teach develop over time? Let's find out. To kick things off, let's ask the most fundamental question imaginable. How do we actually learn to teach? Does the magic of a phenomenal teacher just happen naturally? Are they born with it? Or is it systematically and scientifically built? Well, as you'll see, the answer to that question has changed pretty drastically over the centuries.
Section 1. The Heritage of Observation.
To really understand how we train teachers, we have to recognize the massive historical baggage we all carry into the classroom. Researcher Dan Lordy brilliantly called this the apprenticeship of observation. Think about it. It's highly ironic. Before a young person even sets foot in an education program, they've already spent roughly 13 years just sitting there watching teachers work. This massive amount of observation gives us this incredibly stubborn illusion that teaching is just easy and natural. I mean, we've seen it done our whole lives, right? Historically, trying to overcome that deeply ingrained bias meant completely overhauling how we train educators. It's been quite the timeline. Way back when, it was just haphazard local hiring with low pay and virtually no standards. Then, in the 19th century, we stepped up to normal schools, which were institutions strictly dedicated to teacher prep. But the real game changer hit in the 20th century with what's known as the university turn, officially moving teacher preparation into the realm of modern, research-based higher education.
And the contrast between the past and the present is absolutely wild. The old model was completely static and horribly isolating. A teacher would just walk in, shut the door, and rely on that old cliché, don't smile until Christmas. But today's literal explosion of knowledge completely shattered that model. Now, educators absolutely must be continuous, collaborative learners. You just can't survive as an isolated island anymore.
That brings us to Section 2, the university turn. This era was a massive paradigm shift. Teacher preparation finally shook off its amateur roots and stepped into a highly rigorous, research-driven ecosystem. The field was literally forced to adapt to conventional academic expectations. It wasn't just about sharing classroom war stories anymore. Suddenly, we saw the transition from small colleges to major universities, the creation of master's-level programs, PhD prerequisites for faculty, and a huge push for internationally validated research publications. It was a total transformation. Section 3, the identity of the educator. All of this intense academic pressure basically birthed a fascinating new professional identity, the teacher educator. These folks aren't just teachers, they are the literal architects of the teaching profession itself. We can see this new identity solidified in definitive books like Teacher Educators and Their Professional Development. Huge international collaborations like the Info-TED network stepped up to formalize the roles of these incredible people who were once called the hidden professionals. The field finally carved out its own unique voice and literature. So, how do you successfully navigate this complex new world? Well, contemporary development really anchors itself on three main pillars. First, you've got the theoretical and motivational bases, rooted in strong communities of practice. Then you have collaborative practice models, things like peer teaching and micro-teaching. And finally, and this is absolutely crucial, you have identity and human psychology, which includes the pure grit and socialization you need to actually thrive in this demanding field. Moving on to Section 4, Grit and Collaborative Practice. Let's zoom in and look at the actual daily models used to train absolute novices today. One stroke of genius is the collaborative technique of peer teaching. Instead of just throwing a student teacher to the wolves in a packed classroom, we use communities of practice. Pre-service teachers work together to plan, deliver, and evaluate each other's lessons. This dramatically cuts down that crippling initial anxiety because it all happens in a highly supportive, stress-free environment. But here's the thing. Teaching isn't just about flawless technique. It is incredibly emotional work. This is especially true for language teachers. To survive the super intense dual role of being a language learner and a language teacher at the exact same time, you need serious grit. It's that visceral, deep-seated passion and persistence required to overcome the very real psychological fear of making a language mistake right in front of your peers. We can actually map this entire journey through a reflective practice cycle. It is a highly methodical evolution. It starts with collaborative planning, moves into peer observation during microteaching, and then utilizes incredibly powerful tools like video analysis, where they objectively dissect their own lessons. It finally wraps up with a targeted plan revision based entirely on impact. Honestly, it's the beautiful science of learning in action. Which brings us to the ultimate resolution of our evolutionary story. Section 5, From Self to Impact. This mental shift is the absolute biggest psychological hurdle any novice teacher faces. In the beginning, it's all about self-concern. The novice is terrified, thinking, how does my voice sound? Is my posture okay? Do I look as nervous as I feel? But the real magic, the true evolution, happens when they transition to impact concern. That's when a teacher forgets their ego entirely and focuses completely on actual student understanding and progress. The true proof of this professional evolution, it doesn't show up on a multiple choice test. The ultimate evidence of maturity, of real differentiation in practice, happens when a pre-service teacher dynamically changes their perfectly scripted lesson plan right in the middle of a session simply because they notice a struggling student who needs a completely different approach. That is when you know they've truly made it. So we've seen the whole journey, from haphazard local hiring to highly specialized teacher educators who perfectly balance science, grit, and human impact. And because of that, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought. If the teacher is the architect of our future, and the teacher educator is the architect of the teacher, are our current educational systems actually doing enough to support the lifelong learning of these essential professionals? The very foundation of our society depends entirely on those who teach the teachers. Thanks so much for joining us on this incredible journey.